Yes, tension fills the streets. And this tension that fills the streets is eventually going to break into violence. Because the soldiers that show up, are they being paid very well by Britain? They are not being paid well. So what do they do since they don't make much money? What do the British soldiers do because they don't make much money, Dustin?
They hire themselves out as workers.
Yeah. They hire themselves out to Americans, and they hire themselves out at rates lower than what an American would work. So Drake is a British soldier. Paige is a colonist. Hundley's the business owner. Paige tells Hundley she'll work for $5 an hour. Well, here comes little Drake, the redcoat, coming in and telling Hundley, I'll work for $2 an hour. Who will Hundley hire?
If he's a good businessman.
If he's a good businessman, he's going to hire Drake. If he's loyal, he will hire Paige. But who doesn't want to make more money? So they start hiring the British, which makes Paige and all of her little friends quite upset. Okay? So a lot of tension in the streets because these British soldiers are walking around the streets and the colonists, they run into each other. Well, one night they're out in the streets yelling back and forth names at each other, lobsters for sale because they're selling themselves for jobs. What are the redcoats calling colonists in return, Jordan? Yankees, which eventually they'll take to, as a prideful name. So finally, this kind of explodes into a little bit of violence, obviously. They start trading insults, a fight breaks out, one guy gets hit in the head with the butt of a gun, the colonists, the back of, what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The butt of a gun. Colonists are throwing rocks at the British, and then all of a sudden, what happens? Garrett?
Well, British soldiers were forced to fire upon them.
Right, and this is going to, this is tough because some say one of the captains yelled fire, others say he said do not fire. And that will go into the trial, and you'll find out, obviously, what happened. But the British shot. They began shooting. And we talked about him earlier, but who was the first man killed in the Boston Massacre, PJ?
Crispus Attucks.
Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks. What's that?
The dog is still there.
The dog is still there.
Maybe the dog is still there.
So we've got this fighting going on. 5 men are killed. A lot of people use this to throw in anti-British propaganda in the newspaper. This is one of those pieces of propaganda drawn by Paul Revere, who is totally anti-British. And he tries to mislead people and making it appear that it is the British fault. Okay, so everybody is just outraged because this gets put all over the place. It goes throughout all of the colonies. Alright, so let's watch a short video clip on the Boston Massacre. 3 minutes. Don't get comfy. We're going to. Because of you, we'll do it. We've got an excellent idea. Each class is in charge of something different. So,
What are we doing?
courtesy of Drew Soul, we are reenacting the Boston Massacre. You'll get your parts and stuff when we're done with all this. 2 minutes running late. Hey, let's keep it down.
Unlimited talk, text, and data per life.
And what if, say, technically you were not alive? Like, maybe you were undead?
Like a zombie.
Whoa, let's not go putting labels on people. I'm a zombie. Switch to Sprint and get unlimited for life. And now, save up to $100 on any phone.
Silversmith and political radical Paul Revere captures the moment British soldiers killed 5 colonists in the streets of Boston. His engraving will fuel the fires of revolution. This outrage spreads across the 13 colonies. March 5th, 1770. After 3 days of unrest, an angry mob roams the streets. Hundreds of men who lost their jobs and blamed the British gather on King Street and face off against 8 redcoats with orders not to.
Come on.
What'd you do, Gary?
What's about to happen will change America forever. A 17-year-old wigmaker's apprentice, Edward Garrick, lights the fuse.
They definitely look confused.
This is how wars start. Private Hugh Montgomery is hit with a club.
Well, everyone gets shot.
An African-American, Crispus Attucks, dies instantly.
That's a little much.
When the smoke clears, 4 more are dead.
Unhappy Boston, see thy sons deplore, thy hallowed walks besmeared with guiltless gore, whilst faithless Preston and his savage bands, with murderous rancor, stretch their bloody hands.
The most formidable army in the world, firing on an unarmed crowd. An explosive image with a title that says it all. The Bloody Massacre.
All right, so yeah, right away it wasn't called the Boston Massacre. It was called the Bloody Massacre. It was called something else, massacre, and eventually historians started to call it the Boston Massacre. You want to hit the 3 lights except for the very first one? Okay, now, so they have to, decide what is right and wrong here. It goes to court. Okay, the colonists feel it is the British fault and vice versa, so there's going to be a trial to see if the British are at fault here, and there's actually 2 trials, and I think I have 4th hour doing, because you guys are doing the massacre. Yeah. 4th hour is doing one of the trials, and 8th hour or 7th hour is doing a different trial. Because the 2 trials, there's different outcomes of what happened. Okay, and all right, so they go to court, and they need a lawyer. The British need a lawyer. And who do they get to be a lawyer? Who defends the British, Cameron?
John Adams?
Yeah. The cousin of Samuel Adams. John Adams will be the president of our country. Number 2. So he's defending them in court. Now, he's a colonist. A lot of people aren't happy with John Adams for taking this case, and they criticize him. But he replies to all this criticism, with what type, how does he respond to this? People that criticize him for taking the case and defending the British. What does he say, Dylan?
Death to the clamors of populace.
Right, that's, English talk back in the day. So tell me what that means, though, in your words, anybody. What do you think, Garrett?
The law can't be biased. You need to be represented.
Right, everyone needs to be represented. It's like defense lawyers that are defending someone that murdered someone. They honestly don't care if the person murdered someone. They're trying to find a loophole. They're trying to prove a case, and that's what John Adams was trying to do. He felt that they needed to be defended. So John Adams in court, basically, what was his, the meat and potatoes of his case? What was he claiming for the British that they did? Why did they act this way? PJ?
He claimed that the British were attacked and they fired off shots to defend themselves.
Exactly. They were being attacked and they were defending themselves. So he claimed self-defense. Okay. Fight, argue, goes to trial, goes to the jury, and how does the jury find the defendants?
Not.
Zach, not guilty. The jury agreed, and John Adams was able to get the British not guilty. They were not guilty for killing those five people. Now, we're going to go into that a little bit more in depth and see kind of the things that were talked about in the case as we get into this little reenactment. So this heats up the colonists even more, because not only did they kill 5 people in the colonies in Boston, now they were able to claim self-defense and get off. So that made them even more angry. All right. So make sure you're on 166. Now, the exact day of the Boston Massacre, Parliament repealed the Townshend Acts. It's interesting. So they repeal the Townshend Acts, but they repeal every single part of the Townshend Acts except one thing. What was it that they did not get rid of? They kept because they felt was very necessary. Dylan?
Taxing.
On
The costs.
on specifically what?
Import.
More specific, like one specific good.
Tea. Oh my god.
Tea. The Townshend Acts were repealed except for the tax on tea. Because the colonial boycott had been affected. Their trade was hurt. So they had to repeal that tax on imported goods, but they left the tax on tea. Why do you think they left the tax on tea? What the heck is it about tea, Zach?
Maybe a lot of people in the colonies can get.
Anyone ever been to England or know anything about the English?
It's very
Tea.
bitter.
Love
It's very
tea.
bitter, though.
They love their tea. Tea time. Every single day there's tea time. So tea was coming into the colonies non-stop, and they knew that the colonists wanted tea. They knew they'd get their tea. So they kept the tax on tea. Now, Mr. Samuel Adams, still upset, still the leader of the Sons of Liberty, so he forms a group. And what is the name of his group? Andrew Edens.
The committees of correspondence.
Yep, Samuel Adams forms. Make sure if you're going to just put his last name that you put an S so you know the difference. Samuel Adams forms the committees of correspondence. And what are the committees of correspondence? Drake Dodson, what are the committees of correspondence?
They exchange letters and foreign affairs.
Yeah, all throughout the colonies they were exchanging letters, letting each colony know what was going on in the other colonies. It was a nice little way for them to let the other place know what was going on in their area. Okay. So now we've got this tax on tea. And it's coming in on ships. They're trying to smuggle it in, but it's tough with the customs officials there. So, well, we need to protest again. All right. And how do we protest this time against the Tea Act? Dustin? The protest by the Boston Tea Party. Let me give you a second to get the rest of that written down, and then I'll move over that. Zach, you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask.
You're going to what?
Stay away.
Well, what happened? Let's just hold off for a second. Okay. All right, so the Boston Tea Party. So, Zach, tell us what happened at the Boston Tea Party. It wasn't a party, a happy party.
It was a bad
It was a bad party. What happened?
On December 16th, 1773, a group of men disguised as native Indians boarded 3 of the tea ships docked in Boston Harbor, and then one of the men, George Hughes, a Boston shoemaker, told them to dump it all into the Boston Harbor, and the others destroyed 342 chests of tea.
Yep. So the colonists dumped all these chests, hundreds of chests of tea, into the harbor. Now, around the same time period, all throughout the colonies, they were doing similar things. So it wasn't just the Boston Tea Party. There were other, in other harbors, the same things were going on. So they were destroying all of